Hello and welcome to Voices of Dracut. Tonight my guest is Ruth Shaw-Lessard. We're going to be talking a little bit about Dracut Trivia and Dracut History tonight. Ruth, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Ruth, before we get to the trivia, I want to talk a little bit about growing up in a farm.
Okay.
Because that's got to be a little different. So you're a young girl, your friends are calling saying, hey, do you want to come do this with us? And probably weren't always able to do that because you had to work on the farm.
I did when I was older. It was definitely a different lifestyle. I mean, my friends would be going away on vacations, and we had 1 week every summer where we went tenting up in the mountains. So it was 7 days a week, and the cows had to be milked twice a day. And when we were young, we used to what we called mind the cows. Mind the cows.
So and you're babysitting them?
We were babysitting the cows for 10 cents an hour.
Yeah.
And so we would, this was when I was probably 8, 9, 10, right around in there. So now if you can imagine New Boston Road today with all the houses and everything, it wasn't like that then. They were just starting to build houses on New Boston. So we would chase the herd of cows down New Boston Road to the bend in the road, and there was a path that went into a big field where the gas station is now. I think it's Speedway or something.
I know where you are.
Anyway, so my uncle Albert owned that field. So we would chase the cows down there, and we would stay there for the afternoon watching the cows. We always thought it was just a way to keep us busy and out of trouble for an afternoon. And we'd get 10 cents an hour, and then later in the afternoon we'd have to chase them back up the road to be milked. And so that's just how it was. It was just a different, and my friends were kind of envious, actually. They thought that was kind of cool that we got to do that.
What other type of responsibilities did you have on the farm?
So when I was 12, 13, I helped my father milk the cows.
Yep.
So in those days, it was the old milking machines, and we had to, I would put a belt over the cow that would hold the milking machine, and then I would have to wash the cow's udders before the cow could be milked. And then after the cow was milked, my father would pour the milk into those big milk cans.
Yep, sure.
And so that was my job. And then after that, we had a small little milk room there in the barn, and I would have to wash up all the equipment. I would have to sterilize all the equipment. And then the milk, my grandfather Shaw, he built, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of it, it's on the Shaw Farm website. He built a car. It was like a box car on wheels. We called it the only railroad in Dracut. And we had railroad ties going over from the barn to the milk room where the milk was processed. And so the milk would all be put into this big vat, refrigerated vat that was in there, and then it would be pushed over to the milk room to be processed at the end of the day. So
now, when you said you were doing this wasn't at like 2 in the afternoon, though. This was probably a little earlier?
Oh, this would have been the cows. So the cows were milked twice a day.
Yep.
So this would have been the afternoon milking, like maybe 4 o'clock.
So you didn't have to do the morning shift before school or anything?
No.
Your parents were soft on you.
No, I never had to do that. But
that's kind of cool.
But it was a different,
So one of the things you've been doing recently, Ruth, on social media is you've been sharing a lot of Dracut Trivia. And it's been kind of funny to watch, just as one of your friends, and to see people going, oh yeah, Ruth, I remember that. Or people going, really? I didn't know that. And just getting to watch the interaction and people, saying, but hey, you should talk about this.
Right.
So what gave you the idea to just start sharing Dracut Trivia?
Well, I love trivia, and I love Dracut, and I love the history of Dracut. I remember when I was young being at my grandfather Shaw's house and reading. He had the History of Dracut written by Silas Coburn back in the 1920s.
Yep.
And so I used to, for some reason, I just enjoyed reading that, and it just kind of always stuck with me. And then later on, when I was maybe 11, 12, we used to go to the library every Saturday.
Yep.
And
Back when that was the thing.
Okay, yep. And we never had books. We just would go to the library every week. So Mrs. Dracut, the librarian, one time she took us downstairs in the library, which then had all of the historical artifacts from Dracut. So, you know, that piqued my interest too. I really enjoyed that. And then I guess there was a flood in the basement. Must have been sometime in the 60s, I guess. And then it was moved over to the historical building, which is there today. But I always enjoyed that, and I just thought it would be fun to do something like that. And people have enjoyed it, and you know, they're learning. I've had one guy that now wants to join the Historical Society because of that. And I really, if more people would be interested, that would be great.
Yeah, but that's a way to make them interested.
It is,
you know,
it is.
By sharing stuff that they, you know, may care about and saying, well, what else do I know?
Yes.
If it's someone like myself, you know, I didn't grow up in Dracut, I grew up in Lowell, so we moved here, you know, 20 so years ago. So, you know, when you say, you know, do you remember there was a carousel or whatever? No, I don't, you know, so it's nice to, you know, when people tell you the history and what's in every place, and that's honestly how the show started. So let's talk about some of the ones you wrote down for me here today. You got land for the high school and complex, so how'd that all come about?
Well, that land was owned by Justice Richardson, and he owns Beaver Brook Farm, or owned it, which is on Mammoth Road. And that land went from Mammoth Road down to Lakeview Avenue, where the high school is now.
That's a lot of land.
It is. It was a lot of land. So he gave, back in the early 50s, he gave land, he donated. Actually, I was reading today to prepare for the show, there was an airport in Dracut. That was another thing I had written about, next to where the Historical Society is now. And I remember that growing up. It was called, the Richardsons owned that land, and that was Richardson Airport. So he, Justice Richardson, the airport had closed down. He actually donated the land that the airport had been on to the town. So that was pretty awesome for him to give that land. And as a matter of fact, I believe it's the middle school is named after him.
Yeah. But like I said, you think about that and the value of land, you know, to give away that much land to put the school complex on is a lot of money, you know. I mean, even back then, especially today, to find that much land is kind of cool and stuff. So Ruth, people use the expression Navy Yard all the time. First of all, I don't know what that is, where it is, and why it's called the Navy Yard. So where is the Navy Yard?
Navy Yard is, go down Lakeview Avenue to the light where Dracut Appliance is. That's the Navy Yard, that section of Dracut. And years ago, the brook, Beaver Brook, you know, the falls are there. So they used to have timber, they used to float timber down the river to go to Newburyport, Newburyport was a big shipbuilding area. And so supposedly, according to legend, it looked like a Navy Yard with all the timber and everything there. So that's
it's kind of random and stuff. So
my research has said that that's what it is.
And like I said, if someone thinks differently, they can call us and they can come on the show next week. You know, they
you know,
get their
it's funny
version
because
of it.
you read one thing and you say, oh, okay, that's what happened, and then you read something else. You don't.
Oh, just like listening to people's stories where everyone has a story. Oh, it's because of this, and you're like, I'd never heard that one before and stuff, but you know,
Right.
but maybe you're right and stuff, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So it's wrote here, Stonewall Kelly. What's that?
Yes. Well, so there was a man who lived out in Kenwood section, and I have to find out why it's called Kenwood. And I went online and I can't find any. Maybe some viewers out there know.
If someone knows who's
the
Kenwood is, reach out to us, let us know.
But I don't know why it's called Kenwood, but so he lived off of Arlington Street. And actually, there's a road there called Kelly Road. I don't know if you're familiar with that runs down onto Methuen Street. So he lived there. I guess they had a farm there, and he went out west around the 1850s to look for gold, and apparently didn't find gold, and came back to Dracut. And then he started on Loon Hill, which from what I had read was also called Kelly Hill. He was getting all the rocks, these huge rocks from there, using his cattle, and he built all these stone walls in Kenwood. If you go out there today, you'll see evidence. I mean, they're everywhere out there. There's one that I know some of them have been redone. Like the ones he did were just very rustic and crude. But now there are some that are, you can tell they were professionally done. But his were just really, that was just his love. He just loved building walls, apparently. Yep.
So what are the two highest hills in Dracut then?
Loon Hill. And Whortleberry Hill, which I had never heard of. I never heard of it, but according to something that had been written in the 1890s, Cape Cod Weekly or something, there was a whole thing about Dracut in there. Whortleberry is in the Lowell Dracut Tingsboro State Forest. And it's named after some berries that grow there. So those are the two, according to this article, those are the two highest points in Dracut. That's in the southern part of Dracut. So
I thought you were going to tell me the golf course.
No.
You get a nice
Although
view from there.
That's
a beautiful view.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
so I thought that's what was going to be one of the answers and stuff. So,
no,
because I've always, like I said, been up there and I've gotten to see that view. You can see for
quite a you can see Boston on a clear day.
Yeah, because the first time someone told me that, I doubted it. And like, well, you can see Boston. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take your word for it because it looks like beautiful. Boston, but
it is. But according to what I read, they said those two hills. So,
So now, how about New Boston Road and Marsh Hill Road? How did they get their names? Was there an old Boston Road?
No.
You would think you would need an old to get a new, no?
No,
I guess
well,
not,
there's a New Boston, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And so that's where that comes from. Evidently, again, this was from a Historical Society newsletter. And on the back of the newsletter every month, they give little trivia things. You know, did you know this is how this was named or whatever. So apparently there was a man who lived, it said, this is what it said, on a hill. And there was a man who lived in the New Boston Road area, and apparently the streets hadn't been named. And so the man who lived on the hill said that street should be named New Boston Road because the man's wife was from New Boston, New Hampshire.
Yep.
So then the man from New Boston Road said that the hill should be called Marsh Hill because that was the man's wife's maiden name. So this is folk, I don't know if it's folklore or if it's true, but this is this is what I
Well, when you started telling me
read.
though, I started laughing because, okay, so she was from New Boston, so we name it. Okay, that's fine. But then it sounds like someone liked the other lady a little bit more because she got it named after her, not
Right,
where she grew
right.
up and stuff.
Right,
So I was
right.
expecting you to say something like, oh, it was named after somebody like that. But
No, that's according to legend.
it's funny
That's
just
what
how
it is.
random things are, though.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
okay, she grew up in New Boston, let's name it New Boston Road. But hey, if you're putting in roads, you get to name them. So,
Right,
you never
right. I
know
mean,
what-
so many streets in town have been named after developers or developers' kids or whatever.
But it's funny just to listen to your stories, like the airport, for instance. We're going to get to that in a minute. But could you picture there still being an airport on Lakeview Avenue?
Right,
You know,
right. Well, but see, Dracut was so much smaller back
Right, yeah,
then.
yeah.
I mean, I mean, it was starting back in the 50s. It was starting to be developed. There was that whole development, Rainbow Acres.
What was that?
Which is, Rainbow Acres is Hurley Avenue and the streets behind Dracut Car Wash.
Sure, yep.
and all that whole development, that was called Rainbow Acres. And so that was built in the probably late 40s, 50s. And then also Bouchard Avenue up in Collinsville, all of those homes were built at that same time. So Dracut was just starting to grow at that time.
So from your memory, do you remember a time when it was more farm than it is
Oh,
now?
sure. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Especially like out in East Dracut. Collinsville had the Canny Farm. Oh, yeah. There were many farms back then. Yep.
Did you like it better?
I'd
have to say yes,
Yeah, I mean, it was a slower
Right, yeah,
pace
yeah.
back then. Now there's just so much more traffic. I mean, I
Sure.
remember when I was a kid sitting on my grandfather's porch, the house that's right across from the ice cream stand, and we would know every car that went by.
Right, yeah.
Every car, we'd say, oh, there goes so-and-so,
Yeah.
because we knew everybody.
Sure.
And then after that, all those homes were built up in Wagner Estates, Patricia Avenue, and all up. So then those were all built. And so then there was much more traffic on New Boston. So, yeah.
Well, it was interesting before the show, Gary was sharing a story with us about when he was a little boy going to, to the milk stand. This was before, obviously, they built this store across the street. And it being an honor system, you wrote your name down, you took 3 milks and you put,
Yep.
talk about a different, better time.
Right. And back then, again, it was mostly all local people. It was just all the area people.
But I can even remember growing up in Lowell, there was a convenience store in our neighborhood, and the owner would do that. He understood, that people get paid on Thursdays, and sometimes you might not have money on Wednesday, and you could come down and say, I need a loaf of bread and some ham.
Sure.
And when I get paid, and he'd write you out a little slip, and you would never think of not paying it.
Right.
That was your obligation to him as a business owner, and that's how you appreciated his, honesty, just saying, okay, I took the milks, and much different time.
Yeah, and Dracut had a lot of those small little mom and pop stores where they would have the store downstairs and they would live upstairs, or they'd live in the back, or whatever. There were a lot of those in Dracut back then.
Definitely different stuff.
Yeah.
So, when we last met, you told me about the Speedway, Dracut Speedway.
Yes.
I want to talk about that because that fascinates me. First of all, where was it?
It was where the new assisted living complex.
So the old Dracut Civic.
The old, yes, exactly, that land. And I don't remember it, but it was till the mid 50s. I think it started in 46 and was till the mid 50s, when unfortunately, I guess it was huge. I mean, there were like thousands of people that would go there all the time, and then unfortunately, someone was killed when a tire flew off one of the cars, and then that put a stop to it. I actually got a comment from my post about that from my cousin he's out in Washington State. My father's brother, Winthrop, lives out there also in Washington. He's in his early 90s. He's like 92,
Yep.
I believe. So my cousin Mark commented back, and he said that my uncle had seen that post, and he knew that very well. In fact, he had driven
Yep.
in that, and he said he drove a car for Shaw Farm. I
Yep.
don't. I have to find out,
Right,
what
yeah.
that would have been. And he said
So that's what you guys are doing with the milk trucks on the weekends.
So he had this big, a 38 Buick or something. He was racing, and he hit a telephone pole. But in those days, the old cars the springs just, he came right off the telephone pole and kept going. So that's just how it was.
That's kind of cool and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, you also said there was a ski slope in Kenwood.
Yes. So again, off of Arlington Street, there was the Kenwood Ski Tow, which operated again back in the 40s, and it was. I never went there. We never went skiing or anything, but apparently it had a rope tow, and it was very popular. And it ended up, I guess, must have been sometime in the 60s, maybe 50s, early 60s, that they closed it because it had it was pointing towards the south, and so the snow would melt
so
too fast. So they ended up closing it. And I'm sure there was probably a lot of competition and whatever.
Yeah.
But I do remember in the 70s, you could still go up there, and I would go tobogganing with my kids.
Right, yeah, see?
Yeah.
Dracut was so much cooler.
It was. We had all these.
You had an airport, you had racing,
Yes,
It just, I think Dracut was so much cooler back then and stuff, so it's kind of neat and stuff. So, so we had talked a little bit about the airport already. I guess the basic first trivia question we have is, how did Dracut get its name?
From England, Dracut, D-R-A-Y-C-O. I've seen a couple of different spellings, T-T or T-E, either one. And so someone who came here from Dracut, England, named Dracut, it just became Dracut rather than Dracut. So, yes.
But it's kind of interesting, one guy had the ability to name the whole town and stuff.
Yes.
It must have a little bit of influence and stuff. So, now, how about the Greenmont Avenue School? What's my trivia on that?
So the Greenmont Avenue School was Dracut High School. And as a matter of fact, my father graduated from Greenmont Avenue. That was the high school. And then I went there till grade. So then the schools changed, and I went to Greenmont, 5th and 6th grade. I went to Collinsville School for 2nd, 3rd. I went to Parker Avenue for 4th grade. It was like you were just kind of all over the place. And then
it sounds like you get kicked out of a lot of schools.
Yeah, I know. And then, so yes, it was originally the high school, and then it became elementary school. And then in the early 60s or late 50s, when the new high school was built, I actually went to the high school for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So I went to the high school for 6 years. There was no junior high.
Wow,
back
interesting.
Then. Yeah.
So we had a mini golf place too. Babes
We
Mini Golf.
We did. It was a really fun hangout. It was called Babes Miniature Golf.
Now, where was it?
It was where the Dracut Car Wash is
yeah.
on Lakeview Avenue.
And everything cool was right there.
It was. It was like right in that area. And it was the guy who owned it, he was so nice. I believe he was a Lowell police officer. And he put up with all of us kids. There was the big hangout. Oh, we were just always, I mean, we just really didn't want to play golf, but we just wanted to kind of have a place to hang around.
Yeah.
And he had a big Coke machine, one of those big old red metal Coke machines that you'd put your 10 cents in or whatever it was and pull the drink out. And it was just such a nice place to hang out. And again, all those kids that were in Rainbow Acres, who were teenagers by then, we would just hang out there, and it was really fun. And again, I wish I could have found some pictures or something, but it just doesn't seem to, I can't seem to find anything, but it was there.
Yeah, because you went there, so you can testify on that one.
Yes,
so,
yes.
All right, so who was Chariot Ice Cream?
Chariot Ice Cream was the building that is now the Loci.
Oh, wow.
It was originally built as an ice cream place.
As big as it is now, it was an ice cream place?
It was not as big as it is now.
That's a lot of ice cream.
It was added on to.
Yeah.
But it was, I remember it, this would have been late 50s, early 60s, and it had the windows, you know, you go up and order your ice cream. But then after that, I'm not sure exactly when they took over, but it became Senior Pizza and Muffin House.
Pizza and muffins.
Pizza and muffin. I know, kind of an odd combination, but it was Senior Pizza and Muffin House. Yeah. And we, again, the kids, because it was so close to the high school, everybody would go there after school, and we would drive the poor lady that owned it. We would drive her crazy. And after the football games, everybody would go there, and it was just, there's a lot of, you know, the mid-60s, that was the place to hang out.
Yep. So what's your Shaw Farm trivia for me?
Shaw Farm trivia?
Yep.
Oh,
what's your earliest memory of the farm?
I don't really have any, like, the first thing that, because I know I must have been there all the time.
Right, yeah.
I guess just minding the cows, that was a really fun thing. I mean, it was, we didn't really do anything. We were just sitting there for an afternoon with a stick in our hand, like that was going to do anything.
But it's funny, though, that we take for granted having a dairy farm in town.
Mm-hmm.
You can drive down the street and get chocolate milk whenever you want.
Right.
And when people visit and they're like, you can get, fresh chocolate milk every day of the week. Yeah, you really can stuff.
Right.
But sadly, Ruth, we are out of time already. As I told you, it went really quick.
Whoa.
So thank you for watching. If you have some Dracut Trivia and you'd like to come on the show, please reach out to me. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Yep.